Hi there, welcome back to the channel. Today's video is slightly longer format than normal. I wanted to do something a little bit different. I've got a couple of weeks off training at the moment, so I thought I'd do a bit of a longer video today on sort of how I've hopefully maintained sort of my competitiveness over when I turned 40 4 years ago, and giving a bit of advice on some of the things that I've been doing over the recent years that have helped hopefully maintain some of my performance, especially run wise. So I have been improving since turning 40. So I've still seen sort of incremental gains year on year since turning 40. Not so much in my overall PB, because I used to run when I was a lot younger, but definitely since turning 40 and re-implementing some of these things, I've seen improvements since my V40 PB from when I turned 40 in 2020 to what I've run this year. And then also looking at things like my bike as well, and some of these things that have impacted my performance on my bike over the last sort of 4 years, and how I've significantly improved. And overall, really, I think looking at how I've maintained the run performance, but really improved the bike, has inevitably sort of led on to actually overall for my duathlons performing a lot more competitively than I was when I was sort of 35, 36 and a little bit earlier. So today I wanted to run through 10 things that you could introduce, you could implement, you could try, that I've been doing since turning 40. So they're in no particular order. So the first one, or the first couple, for example, aren't the ones that I would necessarily prioritize. There might be some of these things that some of you are already doing, and again, they're quite personal as well to myself. There might be things on this list that just don't work for you, but these are things that I've found a combination of these things have really helped me perform well over the last sort of 4 or so years. So the first of the 10 is what I call sort of micro block training. So this is something I learned from when I did my first Ironman back in 2008, I think it was. The program that I followed there had a sort of like a 4-week sort of cycle, 3 weeks of building up in the 4th week easy, then another 3 weeks in the 4th week easy. I implemented this sort of cycle again when I turned 40, so that I would do sort of 3 weeks hard training and a 4th week easy. Not so much in terms of volume, although on the 4th of the weeks, I do reduce my sort of long runs significantly. And I'll talk a little bit later on about my sort of long runs that I do now on a Sunday. But so my long runs are significantly reduced on a Sunday. I still generally train with my club on a Saturday, just because I really enjoy that. And the rest of the week, I don't do any of my sort of efforts, whether that's the run training or the bike training. So I still do the blocks, I still go out and do those sessions, but I just don't do any efforts through those sessions. So the first 3 weeks, really hard graft, 4th week always easy. And also, unless I'm really targeting one of my big championship races, one of my national races, or maybe not so much the national, but definitely the international races, I won't really alter that sort of 4-week cycle for any of the races, whether that's the cross-country season, whether that's road racing, whether that's any duathlons that I've got on a regional and sort of a national level. I haven't really sometimes changed it for sort of the national or the British champs either. So I tend to just train through all of those. But I think for me, the 4-week cycle mentally helps in terms of not training hard all year throughout and just feeling like you're at the grind all of the time and you're having to do session after session after session. So that 4th week is a real chance for me to mentally recover, to get a bit more refreshed. Also to give myself a little bit of time back, especially some of the longer sessions that I do on the bike when I'm sort of midway through my block there, when I'm doing sort of over and under sessions, which could be 90 minutes. Having an easy week where I'm just doing an hour steady on the treadmill or the turbo trainer is really beneficial to me. So one, I think it enables me to mentally stay a bit more refreshed, and also just lets the body recover. A lot of your benefits of your training, if you ever read up on this, is when you're actually in the recovery stages. If you look at weight training or anything like that, actually the muscle mass is built when you're actually recovering, not when you're doing the session. So I find for me as well, doing that 4th week gives my body time to replenish, recover, and then to go again on those 3 weeks. So that's something I introduced when I turned 44 years ago. The second thing is steady running. So even though I'm doing those sort of micro blocks and micro cycles, I also do all of my steady runs at a very steady state. So often there'll be sort of 10-minute miling pace, which for me is really, really steady. So my morning runs and my long run on a weekend is all done around sort of 10-minute miling, if not a bit higher. I do run on trails, which makes a little bit of a difference because and the trails I run on, it can be a whole range of sort of different surfaces, from literally ploughed fields to thick grass to just ordinary sort of bridleway or footpath sort of trails. But yeah, generally can be quite undulating as well. I'm sort of live on the border of Shropshire, so a lot of my running can be done on quite undulating and hilly loops. We have places like Clent Hills, which is a National Trust woodland not far from me. We've got a place called Kimver Edge as well, which is another National Trust area. So some significant sort of hilly areas in and around me, which is fantastic. But I think for me, the steady running is really important. If you read up and have a look at how the Kenyans use their steady running as well in their training, you can see the sort of the benefits that they get from it. I think as well, one of the things is about doing that really, really steady state running is one of the few times where you can really just work on staying relaxed, understanding how your biomechanics are working, how you're running. You can't do that in sessions as much. So actually being able to run at steady state, just concentrate on your running technique and do things like that is also quite useful through those. And for me as well, it's also just about enjoying the running as well occasionally. Hard sessions are hard. Sometimes they're not that enjoyable. So actually being able to get out for an early morning, really steady, enjoy the sort of sun coming up on the fields, it's fantastic. So yeah, so steady runs for me is something that I've bought in, and also to help with injuries as well. I was really suffering with a lot of injuries, sort of late 30s, a lot of calf injuries and things like that. So having those steady runs has really helped with that. The third thing, which I've sort of reintroduced this year, hill reps. So with my sort of micro cycles and the 3-week block that I do, on the 1st and 3rd week, I also introduced a hill session into those things. I'm not talking too much about my ordinary training that I do, my ordinary reps and things like that, because I think that's something I've always done. So the hill reps is something I've added in to help me keep that fitness as I've turned 40. I think for me it's helped to keep that speed. I do come from a track running background. When I was much younger, started out as an 800 metre runner. I was running 1500 metres and sort of and worked up to running sort of 3000 steeplechase. So, but I've always had a bit of speed in my legs from that sort of side of running. So I think as you get older as well, you start to lose a lot of that muscle mass. You start to lose a lot of those fast twitch fibers and things like that. So actually the hill reps that I do are sort of 30 seconds or 25 seconds. So I started at sort of 30-second hill reps at the start of the year, and they're not really sort of on tough gradients. They're probably 2, 3, 4% gradients. I use a mixture of hills, and generally they're in the local woods. I'll go 2-mile jog down. I'll then do sort of 25 to 30-second reps with the jog back down, and at the moment we're doing sort of a 20-minute cycle of those, which is about somewhere between 12 to 13 reps. We're going to probably sit down this year with my coach, analyse what we've done there and see what we might tweak into next year. At the moment I'm doing a week on, week off, so I'll do the first week of my 3, I'll add a hill rep session in instead of one of my steady runs. I won't do it in the 2nd week. The 3rd week I'll get back onto the hill reps, and then the 4th week, as it's my actual easy week, I'll then not do anything there as well. So I'm doing literally a week on, week off with the hill reps, which has been something a little bit different, a little bit more enjoyable, adding something else into the pot as well, which I think a lot of the stuff you do, especially when you get a little bit older, is trying not to do the things, trying to look at what I can switch up, what I can change, what I can do that's not going to be as monotonous as maybe the training that I've been doing over the last sort of 20 plus years. The fourth one, a really big one for me, something I've never done much of. Tends to be one of those things that you do probably when you're injured as opposed to actually to prevent injuries. So that's strength and conditioning training. When I turned 40, just before my 40th birthday, I got in touch with a guy who used to run at my old athletics club called Simon King. And I've been working with him now for 4 years doing strength and conditioning sessions. For me, it's something I've never done, something I don't really enjoy. It's a massive weakness. I could have joined a gym. I could have maybe researched some stuff myself, but actually I sort of need that impetus of actually having somebody there to go and see, to actually do the session with, to actually make me want to do it. I actually quite enjoy having a coach there on something like that to push me. So I started with Simon when I turned 40 on some very lightweight sort of weights. So I was 8 kilograms sort of kettlebell. I've moved up to a 12 kilogram, then I moved up to a 16. I was on a 16 kilogram for quite a while. I'm now doing a lot of my exercises with the 20 kilogram kettlebell. So that's kettlebell swings, high pulls, squats, a whole range of plyometrics, and a multitude of other sort of conditioning work that I've been doing. And it's something I've found huge benefits with. I was suffering with a lot of calf injuries when I was in my late 30s. Unfortunately, there was before big major events as well, which was not good timing whatsoever. So I wanted to make a call really and do something, and I knew that was something I needed to do. So I reached out to Simon and we put a plan together, and I've been working with him now for 4 years. As a previous athlete as well, Simon's coached quite a lot of runners, so he also looks after my run program as well. So he'll do my strength and conditioning and also my run programs through Training Peaks. But the strength and conditioning has made a massive impact. I think probably one of the bigger things that has really had a huge impact on my bike splits and my time trial performances, I think just being able to push more weight. I haven't put any more weight on, so I've become more powerful, still at the same weight that I was. It's enabled my core and my strength to be able to hold the position on the bike, so it means I can actually get into more and more aggressive positions on the time trial bike, but actually hold those positions. It's also enabled me to run well off the bike, having that core stability and that strength. And also I think it's really helped in terms of injuries and not sort of suffering as many injuries through working with Simon. I haven't had any issues with my calves since sort of working with him over the last sort of 4 years. The fifth thing, like I said earlier on, I actually came from a club running sort of background, quite a good level, county level, Midland champion over steeplechase at senior and junior. So I've always been in and around the club scene. I actually started at Tamworth Athletics Club and moved to Birchfield Harriers and spent a bit of time there. We won actually the Midland Road Relays as well with Birchfield and raced in a lot of the British Division 1 sort of premiership for them over the barriers for the steeplechase. But then when sort of started doing a bit more duathlon and things like that, I sort of left the club. Again, turning 40, one of the things I wanted to do was really improve my bike. I decided to join the local cycling club, Stourbridge CC. I've been cycling with them now for just over 4 years. Really enjoy being part of that club. I think as well, I think sport's fantastic in terms of just meeting people, like-minded people, getting out there, being part of a club, being part of that atmosphere has been really, really enjoyable. Learning things from pure cyclists, getting your ass kicked by pure cyclists. So it's taken me a while really over the last few years of a lot of patience, a lot of graft to really improve that bike split and enable me to sort of really ride well with the club. Really enjoy the sessions that I do with them. I generally ride with them once a week on a Saturday to do the chain gang. The rest of my sessions then are on my own, but being part of that whole community is fantastic. And the other big thing I then did was rejoined an athletics club. with work, with training and other commitments, it's quite difficult to get down to the clubs in the evening. Birchfield was a great club, but actually a lot of the guys that I was running with, part of the team, weren't local. Often they'd drive in. They might have been local at one point, maybe university students or whatever. But for me, the club setup there wasn't fantastic. There are some other local clubs as well, Birmingham Running and Triathlon, known as BRAT. But I decided to join Western Tempo, who are based down in Cheltenham. One of the reasons is that a lot of the guys there are duathletes or are triathletes. And for me, it was more about joining that club to be part of the cross-country league, to be part of the Midland 6-stage and Midland 12-stage teams. And then also just to be part of that community again. It is a shame that I can't get down and train with them more often, because they have a fantastic group down there and they do some really, really key sessions. It's one of the things I might look at into next year. I've got a couple of week break at the moment, but maybe consider about, can I get down there every other week? Is it worth me just driving down there and getting down there every other week, just to have a good session with a club and a range of people that are running sub 15 sort of 5k pace, for example. So they have a whole range of guys there that are just phenomenal, from elite duathletes to Ironman athletes. I think there's a guy there now just gone sub 8 recently in Denmark, I believe, running a 2:39 marathon. So they've got some really, really quick guys there that would be really good to train with. So joining a club, whether that's a cycling club to improve your cycling, whether that's a running club to improve running. If you're a triathlete, get down to the local swim club. The sixth one for me is my diet. So late 30s, mid to late 30s, probably about 37, 38, I was diagnosed with colitis, which is like an irritable bowel sort of disease. It's sort of a link to the Crohn's family, which was, quite a difficult time in terms of trying to train with that, with colitis. So one of the things that I did when I turned 40 was turn vegetarian, cut out all meat. I used to eat a lot of beef, a lot of burgers, sausage. Really liked my meat. We actually bought some chickens when I turned 40. Louise and I actually got some rescue chickens, and we've had a few other chickens since then. And that sort of also put me off a little bit, seeing the little chickens running around the garden, seeing what their personalities were like. But more importantly, I think I was reading more and more about meat and what that could do. So I made the decision to go vegetarian, and that's not for everybody. I'm pretty much vegan now. I still eat pizzas every now and again, especially before race day. And I still eat a little bit of chocolate, but majority of the stuff that I eat is vegan. All the milk is sort of plant-based. And I think it's had a huge impact on my performances in terms of my recovery, just general sort of energy levels. I've seen a big impact for me personally. Now that isn't for everybody. Some people I know that have turned vegetarian have often struggled with getting the right calories, getting the right protein and all those sorts of things. But I found it worked really well for myself. My colitis has completely settled. I seem to be performing well. I seem to be recovering better. So one of the things that I really did look at was just completely cutting out meat and then going to pretty much a plant-based sort of diet as much as possible. And then the seventh thing is just trying to get a bit more structure in terms of sleeping and my sleeping pattern. So I had a tendency pre-40s just to stay up late watching telly, watching Netflix, just doom scrolling on the phone. And for me, I've just decided that I try as much as possible to get to sleep in and around sort of 10 o'clock. So that's something that I've been doing now for the last few years, ensuring that I'm trying to get the best rest I can, trying to sleep as well as I possibly can, and just try to get some sort of consistency with that sleeping pattern as well. Sometimes it can be a bit difficult with work, more so getting up early in the morning if I'm travelling somewhere and still want to get my training in, and having to do sessions at 5 a.m. in the morning can be challenging at times. But generally, Yeah, I'm up around 5:45, 6 o'clock in the morning, and generally in bed before 10 o'clock, trying to get to sleep as much as I can at 10, if not before. If I'm training hard as well, sometimes I might be falling asleep at sort of 9:30, for example. And then the 8th one, which I sort of mentioned earlier on, is my long runs. So something that in and around the pandemic, really, I started running a little bit longer, trying to explore more trails. A guy that I run with on Sunday called Mark, we just got into the habit of just running a bit further and a bit further and a bit further. So my long runs at the moment are anywhere between 2 hours 45 to 3 hours. Would bear in mind saying that they're all done at a very steady state again. So you're talking 10-minute mile pace. There might be times when we're running a little bit quicker if it's on a canal or some road sections. Again, we do run on some very hilly sort of areas local to where I live, and that does include running over all of the paths, all of the styes, all of those sorts of things, running through the fields. It can be a little bit choppy, a little bit not the fastest of terrains, but even so, yeah, running between 10 minutes and 10.5 minute miling, really steady state. And I think it's just added another level of enjoyment into what I've been doing. Really enjoyed just going out and exploring the pathways, exploring all the new trails, and doing as much as I can, really. With that as well, we tend not to hydrate or have any gels, have any food, so it's completely sort of non-fueled, which weirdly our bodies seem to have adapted to that over the last sort of two years. And unless it's a really hot day in the summer, we might take a little bit of fuel out with us, but generally through the winter months, have a good breakfast, have some porridge, have some fluids before we go out, and then we'll pretty much run the 2 hours 40, 50, 3 hours unfueled. Then the final two, the first of that, number 9, is being a bit more focused on myself. Not in the selfish way, but I spent a lot of time when I was younger worrying about what other people were doing, who's on the start line, scrolling through the lists, wondering what training they were doing. I think when I turned 40, I'd set myself what I called the Project 1660, which was to run a sub 16 5k and to cycle sub 60 for 25 mile time trial. And that was something I did to try and just give myself some targets as I turned 40, as a lot of people do. They often come up with some wacky, they'll either enter a race, they'll want to do a marathon, they'll want to do a certain time. And for me, I just wanted to try and get some decent performances in as I turned 40. So fortunately, I haven't got down to the sub 16 yet. First year, turning 40, I think I ran a 16:48. Second year, I got down to about 16:28. I'm down to about 16:18 on the 5k. The 25, I managed to actually break the 60 minutes in the first year, doing 57:54, I think it was. And then outside of that, I think it was just more around getting my sessions, doing all the things, doing some of the stuff that I put on this list, just trying to focus as much as possible on myself. And I think if I could be the best that I could be and improve myself, that was only going to inherently bring on good results. So just the motivation just to be performing, bettering myself, thinking about my own times, thinking about my own results in the individual races like 5Ks, 10Ks, 10 mile TTs, 25 mile TTs, led to actually performing a lot better over the duathlons. So my duathlon results have improved just by me focusing on myself on those events, which has led to better performances over the sort of multidiscipline sport of duathlon. And then finally, the last one, like I said, these aren't in any particular order. So the final one is commuting. So that's about, sort of, for me, maximising my time. So hybrid working, twice a week I work in the city, so as part of that I'll commute in, and it means that I don't have to drive an hour each way. I can actually cycle in and around the same amount of time due to the traffic in Birmingham. It actually means in the evenings I can finish work, commute home, and then I'm done for the evening, so it means I've got a bit of time back in the evening as well, as opposed to actually driving home then doing the session in the evening. So I've managed to find quite a nice little rat run into work, so I'm missing a lot of the major roads that I would normally drive into Birmingham, so I go down as much as possible, a lot of the 20 to 30 mile roads in and around sort of Stourbridge, and then also when I get into Birmingham in and around Edgbaston, a lot of the smaller roads now are sort of 20 mile an hour, which is really good. So using the commute as my steady rides is really good, and also it enables me to do a good 2-3 hour session that day. So I'll have the 2 commutes plus the running session in the morning, which is really good. Yeah, so that's my 10 tips to sort of staying competitive over 40. So like I said, they're in no particular order. The first one being the micro blocks, so the 4-week sort of training cycles, then looking at doing steady running at a very steady state, introduction of my hill reps, the weight training and the strength and conditioning, which I think has been one of the big keys that I've been doing over the last sort of 4 years, thanks to Simon King, who I've put a link to his website below if you want to check him out. Does a lot of virtual training as well, and will look after a lot of run programs as well for you. Then sort of joining the local clubs, the cycling club and my athletics club, which has enabled me to be part of the local community, but also I suppose, especially on the cycling wise, training with the group and getting dragged along really and improving my bike, and then on the running side, just being able to get into a lot of the cross countries, road races and things like that. The 6th and the 7th, so my diet and then my sleeping. Like I said, the diet, massive impact for me, especially with my colitis, turning vegetarian and pretty much being vegan, with a few sort of cheeky sort of pizzas and chocolate every now and again, but pretty much I do have no meat whatsoever, but do look at trying to be as vegan as much as possible, especially in terms of milk and things like that. Sleep pattern, then just trying to make sure that I'm getting some regular sleep, not staying up too late, and so forth. And then the long runs, like I said before, as with the steady runs, these are very steady as well, but super long runs for me in reality, getting close to 3 hours most weeks. And then the bit about sort of the psychology around sort of focusing on myself, trying to be the best that I can be, trying not to worry too much about what everyone else is doing, which has had a big impact. And then finally, the sort of maximising the time with things like the commuting and things like that. So I actually have a pannier rack as well now on the winter bike specifically for that commuting, so I'm not carrying my rucksack. So those are the 10 things some of the things that I've introduced or been doing a lot more of since sort of turning 40, and it's had a big impact on my performance. Like I said, I'm probably performing as well now, especially as I was when I was 35, and that's sort of 9-10 years on now. I'm performing better than I was back then, over a 2 hour sort of duathlon, probably anywhere between 5 to 8 minutes quicker. So hopefully I can maintain some of that performance into sort of my 45th year next year, and see how long I can progress, and hopefully introduce some more things which might mean I can even become a bit quicker, especially on the bike. The runs seems to still be holding form and running a bit quicker than I was when I was 40, so that's good to see. So if you want to know anything more about those, drop me a comment, and then please like and subscribe if you haven't. I'll try and get a bit more content out, sharing maybe some bit more detail about some of these things that I'm doing. Hopefully you've enjoyed that slightly longer form video. If you have, let me know, and like and subscribe, and hopefully see you on the channel soon.